and welcome to the Oregon Files podcast. First, our disclaimer. We are for entertainment and knowledge only. We do not mean to offend, so if we misquote, it was not on purpose. We're novice podcasters. We're getting into we're in the 60s now, I think.
62nd episode,
Something
right?
like that, yeah. We are recording today from my attic again, a spare bedroom attic, what have you. You might hear some neighbors. You might hear some dogs. Now to my co-host, Elliot Bowman.
And I think we're going into our fourth year doing this.
How crazy is that?
Right, because we started in 2021.
I think my goal is 100. I want to get to 100 episodes.
I love it.
And then we'll go to syndication.
All right. We'll assess our podcast career from the 100th episode. But yeah, man, that's pretty incredible.
Right?
So Mark and I got some good stories today. We certainly believe that representation and stories from other cultures and walks of life should be heard and talked about. Especially when you tie in back to Oregon, there's a lot of history here, and we like to talk about different stories that you may not have heard about or different people may not have heard about, and I think today will definitely be one of them. If you had a chance to check out our last episode about the UFOs and Men in Black, we appreciate it. If you didn't, check that out. You can get us anywhere where your podcast is available. On YouTube, Mark puts it out there. And we have a website at www.theoregonfilespodcast.com. You can get yourselves a little merchandise, sweatshirts, t-shirts, mug. I put a dad joke of the month on there, and then some pictures of like our previous guests we put on there, and then links to the shows. And you also can contact us through the website if you want to let us know that we're doing good, or insult us, or if you don't agree with what we're talking about. We really try to stick to as much factual information as we can. Even if we mispronounce a word or here and there, we do a little bit of research, even though it may not sound like that all the time. Again, so Black History Month is February. So Mark and I, we thought it would be really cool to do a little episode here around some Black history folks. Mark has a couple stories, and I'm going to be talking about a parachute troop that was stationed here in Pendleton, not here, but in Pendleton, Oregon. Hope you all enjoy it.
Yeah, long overdue, probably, that kind of stuff. First, we got a couple things, some housekeeping. Number one of our sponsors is Video Games Plus and Live Up Frozen Yogurt, located in Roseburg, Oregon. Please check them out. Right now, the yogurt side, even though it's a dead of winter here in Roseburg, it is cold as all get out. The yogurt side's still hopping. All kinds of great new flavors they have. Some are dairy free. You have some no sugar added. You have all kinds of fresh toppings. There's fruit, that kind of stuff to keep the place clean. It's color changing spoons. Yogurt side's popping. And then, of course, you have the short step away is the video game side, which has video games. Pinball machines is real big right now. Great new games, used games, disc golf, any type of card game that you play, board games, that kind of stuff. It's just a really cool place to go spend some time walking around, eat some yogurt, do some shopping.
Stay warm.
Stay warm. Yeah.
Eating some frozen yogurt.
It's the way to do it.
And they have coloring contests and movies on for the kids. You can sit there and enjoy your frozen yogurt.
Heck yeah.
Our other sponsor is Too Shy Brewery, located here in Roseburg, Oregon, also off of Garden Valley. If you want to check them out, they keep up to date on the food trucks. They have musicians and bands there, I think almost every Friday and Saturday. They're also located in Bandon by the Bandon Brewery and Pizza. In Reedsport, they have Too Shy. But really kind of the best place to check out what they have going on is go to Instagram and check out Too Shy Brewery.
Love it. Okay, now the next thing we have some gifts that we received around Christmas that from our longtime collaborator, my brother Dave Layton. He wanted us to open these live on air, is what he insisted on. So we're gonna open these right now. You go first. I don't know what that is. This is fun. So this is a gifts. Our first gifts the podcast has received, I would say.
Good wrapping, Dave.
Yeah,
it is beef jerky. No, it is.
Let's see what
I see a Bigfoot. Oh, it's too funny. All right.
What is that? Oh, is that
It is.
That's amazing.
It is a Bigfoot that you can hang up in your window.
It's like a sun catcher Bigfoot.
It's a sun catcher Bigfoot. It's actually very intimidating.
It looks a lot like me when I'm walking through the house. That's exactly
when you're waking up hungry.
I love that. That is pretty
Thank you,
cool,
Dave.
actually. That's
if
cool.
you're listening, which I'm sure you are, Thank you, Dave.
And he also got us Bad Dad Jokes, new calendar, best of the worst daily calendar. So,
we're going to do that today.
There we go. So boom. Dave, thank you for those great gifts for the podcast. We're very excited.
Thank you, Dave.
A Bigfoot sing catcher. I might put that as a picture for this podcast.
We're gonna do the bet. We're gonna catch up for not for the month, but we'll do some dad jokes here for the calendar. We'll give a little preview. What do you call a factory that makes good products?
I have no idea.
A satisfactory.
I approve.
Okay, that's a little teaser on the New Year dad jokes.
It's fair. It's fair. All right, Elle, I'm very excited to cover this topic. This is one of those ones I've been gathering information on for a while now, just because I want to have enough information and do it justice and just, double check the information. We want to call out the information I'm providing is, of course, from what you would call the internet, Wikipedia, but the majority of this information does come from an OPB broadcast, Oregon Public Broadcasting, Oregon's Black Pioneers.
You down with OPB? You know
I'm
me, Mark.
Exactly. Oregon Public Broadcasting, Oregon's Black Pioneers, you can find on YouTube, is free. And also sos.oregon.gov. So literally the Oregon government website. So, I'm not making this stuff up, right? This is
or
legit.
Is the government making it up to make you make it up?
This could be
a conspiracy.
Dude, don't even get me started on that conspiracy kind of stuff. I don't
We've done plenty of it.
I don't trust anything anymore. just because you should, anywhere I go. All right. Here we're going to dive into this. First, I'm going to cover a little back history, some kind of the start of it, right? So the first confirmed presence, and I'm going to keyword presence, the first confirmed presence of a person of African descent in Oregon is Marcus Lopius. He was a crew member from Cabo Verde aboard the American ship Lady Washington that reached Oregon in 1788. The Lady Washington, so I'm going to segue a little bit here, but that's all we know. We just know this guy was on the ship. There's no proof that he never got a chance to get off the ship to walk on land. So that's why we call it a presence and not saying that he literally walked on land. I have the documentation, the first guy to set foot on Oregon territory. But anyways, I want to segue to a little bit about the Lady Washington, because this is very interesting. The Lady Washington, the ship, was commonly referred to simply as the Washington, was originally a single-masted sloop of 90 tons. As part of the Columbia expedition, seeking valuable otter fur, she left Boston Harbor on October 1st, 1787, under Commander Robert Gray. She served consort to a much larger ship captained by the expedition's leader, John Kendrick. The two ships sailed around Cape Horn, which was the first U.S. flagship to do so.
Oh, cool.
And participated in the maritime fur trade with the coastal indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest. After landing near Tillamook, Oregon in August 1787, fur trade continued through the winter and spring, and they went all the way up to the Vancouver Island. Now, in August 1789, Captain Kendrick unexpectedly changed vessels with Gray, so he took command of the Washington. Kendrick stayed on the coast until summer 1790, at which time he sailed the Washington to Macau to sell his cargo of furs. While there, Kendrick used proceeds from the furs to refit the Lady Washington as a two-masted, square-rigged brig, or brigantine, or brigantine. Not sure how that one's spelled.
Someone will let us know.
In 1791, he sailed her back to Vancouver Island. John Mears claimed that she was the first non-native vessel to circumnavigate Vancouver Island. Here's the crazy part about the Lady Washington. She became the first American vessel to reach Japan in an unsuccessful attempt to move some unsold pelts. I love that.
Interesting.
I love that he shows it. Hey, you guys want some pelts? And like,
right.
We don't know who you are. We don't know what you have.
Unsuccessful.
Very unsuccessful.
Do you think they just yelled from the boat?
You guys want some fur?
Yeah, so we don't have to make the attempt to get off the boat.
So many questions.
Right.
I want that movie. I want that Shogun
Pelts
movie.
for sale.
Yep. Oh man, Lady Washington remained in the Pacific trade, and she eventually went down in the Philippines in 1797.
So sunk?
Yeah, she was lost at the mouth of the Mezatizio River near Vigan, northwest Luzon, in July 1797. All three of those things I just said, I could be completely wrong on.
Beautiful.
Here's the best part is I use Google Translate to try and say, hey, here's how you say those.
I look forward to the feedback on those two.
Yeah, that was fun. Anyways, that was the Lady Washington. So there you go. So first record of an African-American in our area, in Oregon, and in that area was on the ship, right? However, that's not the first documented person to actually set foot. Now, this character I am very excited to tell you about. Here's a guy named York.
Just York?
Just York.
Like a pop cult, like a pop star.
This guy, I'll be around right now. If there's ever a movie that needed to be made, this guy needs his movie.
I'm excited.
Okay? York was an enslaved man who was the only African-American member of the Lewis and Clark expedition.
Oh, cool.
A lifelong slave and personal servant of William Clark, York participated in the entire expedition and made significant contributions to its success. In doing so, he became the first African-American to cross the continent and to see the Pacific Ocean. Now, here's the crazy part is, he was the only one of you guys that could swim. He was the best hunter. He was the best. He knew all this trade stuff that he got. The journals that they wrote along the way are peppered with references to York's hunting prowess. He shot buffalo, deer, and geese alike. His use of a rifle is highly unusual and shows the trust expedition members had in him. His skill in hunting with a rifle may have really helped the expedition and made it successful. He also kept his eyes out for new species for which the expedition was searching. He played a major role in the heavy work of paddling upstream, foraging for food, and building shelters. He even aided in navigating trails and waterways. There's also one anecdote where some of the group got sick, and he was the only one who didn't get sick, went out, got game, fed everyone, nursed them back to health. And they said he was a stand-up gentleman for not escaping.
Oh, that's great.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, thanks for not running off.
So here's the crazy part. So York was born into slavery in the colony of Virginia. He was the son of Old York and Rose. So his mom's name was Rose and his dad was Old York, both of whom were enslaved by John Clark III, William Clark's father. William inherited York from his father in 1799.
Eesh.
Okay. I did not know that Lewis and Clark, and I don't know why I never thought about them owning slaves, but this is a thing. York's most spectacular
Gosh,
country.
I hate that word, inherited.
It's
like
crazy,
like a
it's
piece
property.
of furniture.
It's the worst. I can't even tell you. This whole research was just unsettling. York became the first African-American man to reach the Pacific Ocean when he walked 19 miles, 30 kilometers from camp with Clark. York's most spectacular contributions were with the Native American tribes the expedition came into contact with, whose assistance was sometimes very necessary. According to the journals of the expedition members, York's blackness served as a passport with them. They were impressed by such a strange creature. According to Richard Betts, he was the main attraction of Lewis and Clark's traveling magic show. So York was a sensation. That's kind of was their end with a lot of these Native American tribes. It was like, hey, we got this cool guy. He's big, he's buff, and just something different.
Estimated as 200 pounds.
Yes. Now, the expedition, of course, Lewis and Clark was successful. They come back. All the men of the expedition except York received double pay according to the rank, $5 to $30 per month. And each enlisted man was granted 320 acres. York, as a slave, received nothing. York expected to be given his freedom after the expedition was successfully completed in view of what he called his immense services. But Clark refused repeatedly and became angry when York would not go back to willingly being his pre-expedition role of Clark's body servant. He also expressed irritation at York's insistence on remaining in Louisville, where his wife and children were. So he gets mad that York wants to stay in Louisville, where his wife and kids are. He whipped York and eventually sold him. About 20 years later, though, Clark did tell Washington Irving that he had freed York and set him up in business, giving him 6 horses and a large wagon to start his own business moving goods between Nashville and Richmond. This wasn't true, though. So it was just Clark trying to say, oh, yeah, no, I gave him property, I let him go, and that kind of stuff. That's not true. He sold him off. The last we know of York is that he died in 1815. How wild is that? Okay.
That is wild and sad at the same time.
It is wild and sad. Now, the cool part is since then, there's really cool. There's a York statue in the Riverfront Plaza, Belvedere in Louisville, Kentucky. So he's got a statue now. But if you look back, I guess a lot of the original first sculptures and paintings, that kind of stuff, did not include York. So there's like famous ones like, Lewis and Clark and that kind of stuff. No, They were probably being pulled on a boat by this guy doing all the work while these guys just pointed. Anyways, that one really got me. But York, apparently one of our first cool,
That is
wild story. That one got me. Okay. So the growing divisions over slavery were imported into Oregon in the 1840s as waves of white settlers traveled west to the Oregon Trail. Oregon's racial makeup had been shaped by 3 black exclusion laws that were in place during much of the region's early history. Now, here's the crazy part is, of course, the exclusion laws were reversed in the early 19th century. I think it's like 1912 or something like that. But here's the crazy part. The original racist language stated in Oregon's constitution was not removed until what year, El?
Oh boy. I don't know. I'm going to say old 1976.
2002.
What the?
The original racist language stated in Oregon's constitution was not removed until 2002.
Jeez. Oh, that sank in, huh?
That was on the Oregon Public Broadcasting to Oregon's Black Pioneers when that was said. I rewound it 3 times. I read it on the closed captions to make sure I got it right. Blew my mind. Just so you know, in 1850, Oregon had only about 60 known black residents in 1850. Just so you know, all right. Let's get all this to get to someone more local here is Letitia Carson. Letitia Carson was born around 1815, and she came to Oregon as a slave or former slave in 1845 with a guy named David Carson. She gave birth to a daughter, Martha, while traveling to Oregon. So imagine being on the Oregon Trail, giving birth on the way. There's people who couldn't even make it not giving, you know what I mean? So this woman was a tough woman. Soon after arriving in Oregon, the family settled into a cabin they built on a 640-acre land claim. Here's the catch with that, though. Remember how the land things where you could claim up to 320 acres? Well, David claimed that pretty much that was his wife, so they could get 320 acres per person. But she was African-American, so obviously there's going to be issues, right? A son, Adam, was born in 1849. The next year, officials reduced Carson's claim to 320 acres, most likely because David and Letitia were not married. The Donation Land Act provided 640 acres for married couples only. So technically, they weren't married. Mm-hmm. But he treated her, the records show that was more of his wife than it was a slave. David Carson died in Benton County unexpectedly in 1852. And in February 1854, Letitia filed suit against the executors of the estate to get the property. Now, here's the best part of it. The neighbor to these 320 acres was a guy named Greenberry Smith.
Greenberry?
Greenberry. That's his first name, Greenberry, which it's the craziest name I've ever heard.
Right.
So Greenberry Smith somehow became the executor of the estate of the property because she was African-American. He goes and says, I'm taking over this property. You need to leave. I'm selling off all this stuff. You don't have any crime. And he even, there was even very vulgar things he told her. It's like, if you were in Missouri, I could sell you and your kids. So you're lucky I'm just letting you walk away, but with nothing, right? So she sues. She finds this lawyer in California who helps her sue to at least try. So she wanted to get at least something back. The property, she thought, hey, I should have something, right? You know what I mean? I shouldn't go walk away empty-handed. Now, David had promised that if she would live and work for him during the remainder of his life, he would make her the sole heir, or that he would give his entire property upon his death. But he never put that in writing. So Letitia went to court seeking $7,450 for 7 years of work, plus the value of livestock and other property, which she claimed she was entitled. So what they found out is, guess what? Even though she gave birth to 2 kids and she had, a husband that was not official, she did all the work, all the animals, everything on the farm, right? According to Oregon's exclusionary laws, Black immigrants were not allowed to own land, file suit, or even reside within this territory's boundaries for more than 6 months. Yet Letitia sued David's estate twice, so Mr. Greenberry Smith, twice in a Benton County court in an effort to recover an equitable portion of their property for herself and her children. So the sad part was, he came in, he sold everything they had. Like, they had nothing. Like, he just came in, wiped the property. She had to go to an auction, get some of her own clothes, all that stuff back from her and her kids. She had to rebuy back her own stuff, okay, for the little money that she had. Now, on May 12, 1855, a jury of Letitia Carson's former Benton County peers, all white males, determined that Letitia was due $300 for her services solely as an employee to David Carson, and they gave her another $229.50. However, that $229.50 was just to cover the cost of the legal fees. So she walked away with $300. 16 months later, on October 25th, 1856, a federal judge and local jury awarded her an additional $1,399.75 for unlawful sale of her cattle. So they agreed to her cattle. So she had to sue twice just to get some money back. Now, sometime after the settlement of suit, Letitia and her children moved to Douglas County. For many years, she reportedly made her home with the Hardy Eliff, or Eliff, E-L-L-I-F-F family in the Upper Cow Creek Valley, where she worked for the Eliff family and also served as a community midwife. Now, here's the cool part. This is where she gets some notoriety. In May 1862, Abraham Lincoln signed the Homestead Act into law. The law did not bar, by race, who could be homesteaders. So on June 17, 1863, Letitia Carson filed a claim for 160 acres on South Myrtle Creek in Douglas County, Oregon. She filed as a widow and not as an African American. So she filed as a widow and a single mother of 2 children. Although the act included freed slaves, Letitia didn't identify herself as such because she didn't trust the process.
Right.
Don't blame her.
Why would she? Right.
Work the system, girl.
Right.
On October 1st, 1869, Letitia Carson's claim was certified by President Ulysses S. Grant, making her the only Black woman in Oregon to successfully secure a claim.
Wow. That's awesome.
Letitia's ranch included a 2-story house, barn, smokehouse, cattle, pigs, and an orchard of over 100 fruit trees. The 1870 census lists her real estate worth $5,000 and personal property is $625. So Letitia Carson dies February 2nd, 1888, and was buried a few miles from her homestead property at the Stevens Cemetery in Myrtle Creek.
Wow.
A Light in the Wilderness is a historical novel written by Jane Kirkpatrick in 2014 and based on the facts of Letitia Carson's life, was published. Today, the Oregon State University now owns the land and runs a cattle ranch on it.
Okay, I was wondering.
Yep.
So her gravesite is, I mean, you could
still visit her gravesite.
That's
Yep,
cool.
that kind of stuff. And then they did do on the OPB thing, they took a drone and flew over to see what was still left on the property of her original thing. And they could see probably where the original home stood and maybe some late rocks and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But
wow,
just good for her for tenacity for one thing.
Crazy.
And her son ended up never married and that kind of stuff. He just ended up being buried next to her when he passed. Crazy history though. So that was what I uncovered. Yeah, between Letitia Carson and York.
Right.
I'm telling you, that's what I got.
Well, and there's probably a lot of people like myself. I had no idea that those folks existed. So, and I don't really care what color of skin they were. I mean, they sounded like pretty incredible people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, here's the deal. I went through the public education system. York, when we talked to Lewis and Clark expedition, York was never a thing that came up.
Right.
You know, the picture, I just remember the pictures in the book. I mean, so that.
Well, it was always like Lewis Clark and Sacagawea.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, Sacagawea was always there as like their guide.
Yeah.
They never talked about the enslaved black guy who was obviously an integral part of their expedition. So.
Yes. And the fact that they got York from his dad.
Right.
You know what I mean? He inherited him from his dad. And then he wouldn't let him go after the expedition.
Yeah, that's maddening.
And this poor guy worked his butt off. I mean, it's not easy to go across the country in the wilderness for a couple of years.
Right.
And do all this labor to come back and say, hey, sorry, I don't want you to live with your wife and kids. I really want you to be my personal manservant over here.
Right. Your job is not complete.
Yeah. And to not get a dime out of it.
I wonder what his reaction was.
It's just. This is one of those times, once again, when they say, reparations, I'm going, I could see it.
Yeah.
It's like,
man, I love that story about Letitia too. I kind of feel like she got not just, but she kind of got what she deserved,
Yeah.
What she was fighting for all those years,
Absolutely.
Some peace and quiet and some freedom and piece of land and everything. So.
Once again, she worked hard. She did. That's the thing was with Letitia Carson is that I guess David Carson, her husband, or that wasn't official. I guess, I don't know if he was disabled or something like that, but he wasn't able to do a lot. He may have been older.
Mm-hmm.
So she did everything. And out of a homestead with that many animals and that much to do back then with they didn't have power tools. You know what I mean? That's grit. That's straight grit.
Right. And probably learning as she's going, or maybe she knew how to do half that stuff. I don't know. I mean,
so true.
Not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just YouTube stuff and be like, how do I build a fence and put in some wire, or, build a coop, or take care of, either you know it or you learn it as you go.
That's right.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Very amazing.
I saw this article, or maybe it was on the news. I can't remember, but it was about paratroopers. I always have a hard time with that word. Paratroopers.
Yeah.
They were based here in Oregon, in Pendleton, Oregon, and they were called the Triple Nickels, which I love that name.
Triple Nickels.
Yeah. So I have some info about them, and then I thought it was really important, not for me to tell the story, but also important to hear from the gentleman that put together these paratroopers. So the Triple Nickels in 1944 were a group of black infantry soldiers that gained entrance to the Army's elite airborne school. After graduating from the grueling course, they faced continued racial prejudice in the Army. Since most of the first graduates came from the 92nd Infantry Division Buffalo Soldiers, this new organization became the Triple Nickels, after the Buffalo Nickel.
Oh.
This new unit became a pioneer in airborne operations, from firefighting to atomic warfare. As the Army pushed black soldiers to menial jobs, the Triple Nickels became the first black parachute infantry battalion and found a welcoming home in the airborne community. After the war, they made the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment and the 82nd Airborne Division the first integrated combat unit.
Wow.
The story of the Triple Nickels began both in Washington, D.C. and Fort Benning, Georgia. In Washington, pressure to admit black soldiers into frontline and elite units grew until it demanded action. Finally, in April 1943, President Franklin Roosevelt ordered the formation of an all-black paratrooper unit. At Fort Benning, the all-black parachute school service company had a serious morale problem. While paratrooper students trained to join the Army's elite and fight in World War II, the service company guarded airborne school after training hours with no hope for frontline action. So they were training and doing all this stuff, but they were just like guarding, the houses. They were kind of just doing like routine jobs. They weren't really, they wanted to fight. They wanted to join in the action, 1943, 44. I mean, the war was kind of either the war was winding down a little bit, so to build a sense of pride, unit pride, First Sergeant Walter Morris began to train his company like airborne school students. He saw an opportunity. The command of the airborne school, General Ridgely Gaither, offered Morris a position as a first sergeant in the new all-black paratrooper unit. Morris accepted, then helped Gaither handpick 19 soldiers for a test platoon. These college graduates and elite athletes, with their proven character and intellect, set out to prove black soldiers could be paratroopers. Airborne school was grueling, divided into 4-week phases, while in the course, every individual, regardless of rank, was treated as a private. The first week was A stage, was a physical gauntlet of almost constant running and calisthenics. It was designed to wash out those without the mental toughness to endure while teaching fundamental skills. So that's almost kind of like, I know I talk about this a little bit often, but my daughter, when she was in the Air Force, they called it week 0, which is basically similar to that. It was like, breaking you down, which I think most military do that anyway.
Break down those,
Right. It was designed so even athletes in peak physical condition felt the physical strain of proving they were tough enough to be paratroopers. Stage B felt the physical strain of proving they were tough enough to be paratroopers. B stage continued the exercise while drilling, landing fundamentals, and basic hand-to-hand combat, while A and B stages tested physical and mental endurance. C stage challenged courage. During C stage, paratroopers simulated the exciting and in-descent portions of parachute jump. While finally, during D stage, aspiring paratroopers made their 5 qualifying jumps to earn their jump wings. Oddly enough, it was the grueling crucible which gave black soldiers respite from discrimination. During training, they were paratrooper students, nothing more or less, regardless of their instructors' backgrounds or views on race. During that time, because of the training and their hard work, I think the race was kind of put aside and they were seen as, just paratroopers.
That's awesome.
On February 18th, 1944, 16 enlisted soldiers from the test platoon graduated as the first black paratroopers. A week later, Carson Stewart graduated as part of the first integrated airborne training platoon. Shortly after the test class, 6 black officers graduated from airborne school on March 4th, 1944. Once they had earned their jump wings, in the words of then Second Lieutenant Bradley Biggs, quote, something of a brotherhood among paratroopers across racial lines developed, whereby we worked together to train incoming members. We came to share experiences in the field. We ate together, and on occasion we taught together. Despite continued segregation and racism in the Army, black paratroopers found a home in the airborne community. With airborne school open to black soldiers, the 555th grew to a battalion ready to reinforce paratroopers on the Western Front. Given the heavy losses among paratroopers in the Battle of the Bulge, which began on December 16, 1944, the Army needed replacements. The German counteroffensive proved the mettle of black soldiers, even though the Army normally kept them away from the front line. Racial prejudice in Washington slowed the process of sending black combat units to Europe until April 1945. By then, German forces were crumbling, and the new threat was actually emerging in the Pacific Northwest. This takes us to, there was a raid on Japan Holmes Island called the Doolittle Raid. Japan's military searched for a weapon to reach the mainland United States after that raid. So they were kind of looking for a way to retaliate against the United States. So they would hang these incendiary bombs on balloons, floating them on a jet stream.
Yes.
Which is a crazy idea. Japanese bombs could reach America. So it's almost like they were like sneak attaching these bombs on balloons, which is not the very sneakiest way, because, I mean, how slow are these bombs moving? You know what I mean? Like, you can obviously see this thing coming, right? Yeah. So these bombs had the potential to disrupt infrastructure and incite terror on the West Coast. One balloon actually made it as far as Michigan. Another balloon cut power lines and disrupted plutonium production for the Manhattan Project. Whoa. So it literally disrupted part of the Manhattan Project, right? A third incinerated a reverend's wife and part of a Sunday school class as they picnicked near Gerhardt Mountain, Oregon.
I heard that, yeah.
So it killed a Sunday school class, a reverend and his wife, while they were just like, I'm eating a sandwich, and here comes like a bomb from a balloon, and just it killed them.
I like hey, what's that floating thing in the sky?
Right. I don't know. Somebody's birthday. The Army suppressed news of the bombs to prevent panic, but the U.S. Forest Service, they needed help. So this is where they come to Oregon. It was a top secret mission called Operation Firefly. In 1945, the 555th Battalion departed for Pendleton, Oregon, and Chico, California, to combat forest fires ignited by these Japanese bombs. Combat-ready paratroopers traded their rifles and for firefighting gear for Operation Firefly. During the summer and fall of 1945, the Triple Nickels fought fires and disarmed bombs throughout the Pacific Northwest. They earned the name Smoke Jumpers due to their ability to insert firefighting teams by parachute. In doing so, they helped to innovate and codify the tactics, techniques, and procedures for parachuting into forest fires. They already were familiar with using explosives. The Triple Nickels became explosive ordnance disposal experts.
Wow.
The Triple Nickels excelled in both firefighting and bomb disposal. They won over the Forestry Service. Despite their discipline and the support of the Forest Service, the 555th still faced discrimination from the Pendleton Air Force Base commander. The Triple Nickels' professionalism and positive attitude won over the residents of the town. They also became ambassadors for the airborne community to sister services. The 555th tested using Navy planes to deploy paratroopers as reinforcements during mock enemy attacks. The Triple Nickels made around 1,200 jumps to help control 36 fires and dispose of several bombs.
That's amazing.
Following the end of World War II, the Triple Nickels returned to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Upon the arrival, the battalion received the worst housing on the post. This abuse and the, quote, two-color army, which kept these elite soldiers separated, frustrated Major General James Gavin. As commander of the 82nd Airborne Division, he campaigned to integrate the 555th into the 82nd Airborne. Facing continued resistance, Gavin guaranteed the Pentagon that the paratroopers of the 555th would earn the right to wear the honors by the division in World War II, quote, by their high standards as soldiers. Gavin got his way, and the 555th marched down Fifth Avenue in New York as part of the World War II Victory Parade.
Awesome.
While Gavin had the moral compass that influenced the force the issue of integration, it was a spotless record and reputation for discipline and expertise the Triple Nickels had created for themselves, which made the move possible. Gavin also saw the absolute best soldiers for his units, and the Triple Nickels has shown they were among the elite company. The lasting impact of the Triple Nickels extended far beyond their actions in World War II. Several Triple Nickels formed the core of the 2nd Ranger Company, making the Rangers Regiment first combat jump at Muzanai during the Korean War. As the 82nd Airborne disintegrated, the Triple Nickels quality broke stereotypes about black soldiers. The experience of soldiers weakened prejudice burials in the civilian world. In 2004, 60 years after secured his jump wings and made history, Walter Morris pinned those wings onto his grandson. After 6 years of breaking down barriers and driving integration by dint of his explanatory service, Morris was the guest speaker. By then, integrated classes and graduations were normal because Morris and his fellow soldiers had become the best the Army had to offer. The 555th Triple Nickels paved the way not only for black soldiers in the elite forces of the Army, but for a positive wave of change in the race relations throughout the United States after World War II.
Where's our movie? I want to see this movie, right?
Well,
This
here's
is
the
crazy.
thing. There was a documentary done.
Okay.
So there was a documentary, which I'm going to play a clip here in a second.
Okay.
It's called Jumping into Fire, and it was done by a gentleman his name was Chase Ogden. And you actually can go to youtube.com/Chase Ogden Films. There's also chaseogden.com to check out this documentary. It's called Jumping into Fire. It took me a while to find. I wanted to find an interview. I wanted to find somebody's voice from this paratroopers.
Thank you.
More than just me just going on and on here.
I respect that a lot. I think that's a good call.
Yeah. So I actually found this story, this article. It was on the National Museum, United States Army, the nationalmuseum.org articles, Triple Nickels. So this was all out there. This is not just me making crap up. There's also a triplenickel.com. So the dedicated to the first black paratroopers. So Walter Morris, Jack Tillis, Leo D. Reed, Sergeant Whale, Herbert Bridges, Alvin Moon, Sergeant Ned Bess, Roger Walden, McKinley Gofford Jr., Elijah Westby, Samuel Robinson, Calvin Beale, Robert Green, Lonnie Duke, Clarence Beavers, James Cornegie, and Carstel Stewart were the men that made up the first black paratroop infantry. And then I'm going to play a clip here. It's about 15 minutes long. It's the gentleman that actually put together the paratrooper unit. It was Walter. This is Walter Morris talking about it from the documentary Jumping into Fire from Chase Ogden.
Our adventure at Smoke Jumpers, the Japanese incendiary, all that was left out of history, you know. We didn't storm the hill. We didn't do any of that, but what we did should have been mentioned. They just don't know. And I think they should know. I was in the first all-colored parachute unit. In December of 1943, the Army activated a colored parachute unit, and it was designated the 555 Parachute Infantry Company. And the Army at that time were offering a one-year service to anyone who wanted to volunteer for a year. That was a godsend for me because it allowed me to do something other than sit around all day. So I volunteered. I was called in, and they showed me a list. And the list included a service company, a parachute school. The parachute school kind of intrigued me, and I chose that. Well, the service company for the parachute school was a company made up of all colored troops. I use the phrase colored because in the 40s we were designated as colored. And this service company had a white officer and all colored soldiers, and our sole function as a service company was to do guard duty for the parachute school and its properties. We as colored soldiers in Fort Benning, Georgia in 1941 and 42 could not go into the main post exchange, but when we passed the main post exchange and we could look in, we could see the German and Italian prisoners of war sitting down at the same table with the white soldiers, drinking cokes and smoking and having good. So it's understandable how colored soldiers would have an inferiority complex. There must be something wrong with us. We're in uniform, but we're not good enough to sit at the table with the prisoners of war. I took it upon myself to put in operation a scheme to raise the morale of the men. Every day, the white students would go through their training, push-up, jumping up from a 5-foot platform, coming out of a mock-up fuselage of a C-47 plane. So we watched them day in and day out, and we knew the routine. So it occurred to me that if I could get my men to go through the same calisthenics as the white do, it might inspire them. So one day, I gathered all of our men with the help of the NCOs, and we double-timed the men to the field. And we assigned them to each post. Some were doing push-ups, some were jumping off the platform, and then another group learning how to come out of the C-47 plane. And an amazing thing happened, because after a week or two of that type of regimen, I could notice a distinct improvement in their appearance. Their clothes were crisp. When you talk to them, they looked you straight in the eye, and they began to act like soldiers rather than servants. And that was very heartwarming to me. And it was one day during our exercise that the commanding general of the parachute school, General Gates, was on his way back to his office one day, and he looked across at what should have been an empty calisthenic field. And he saw about 50 colored soldiers running up and down, shouting 1,000, 2,000. He told his chauffeur to stop, and he observed this for a while. And he went back to his office and told his aide to get in touch with that first sergeant and have him in my office tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And the next morning, they ushered me in, and I saluted, and he returned the salute, and he said, well, explain to me what I saw. And I did. And he was impressed. And he said, this is a good move you made. But now let me tell you a secret, Bart. In a few weeks, the Army is going to direct me to activate a 555 parachute company, all colored, officers and men. And would you like to be the first sergeant of that company? And I said, oh. And going back to my office, I have, to this day, no idea how I got back. My head was on the cloud. I might have flown back. I might have taken wings. In December of 1943, orders came down, activating a 555 parachute company, and Walter Mars, first sergeant of that company.
The physical conditioning is just as tough as ever. Makes you wonder whether you really want to be a paratrooper.
Some of you will not have the stamina or the endurance to complete the course. This we know beforehand. Those that do complete the course, we feel, will uphold the high standards of airborne service.
20 of us started classes in January, and we went through the course. They selected one of the instructors who volunteered, because most of them did not want to be associated with us. So we jumped 4 days, and then the 5th jump was at night. And once you jump at night, jump the following morning, you graduate, because now you're a paratrooper. You're excited and you're nervous for every jump, but it's a wonderful feeling when you jump out of a plane. You get that, once the chute opens, then you're up there and it's quiet. It's a wonderful experience. A lot of the guys say, you're on a high because you're looking down and the whole planet is yours. And once that was done, and once the officers finished their course, and the Army opened the gates for all colored soldiers who wanted to volunteer, and they came by the hundreds. And we set up our headquarters, and we start functioning.
All over the world, the United States Army is on the alert to defend our country, you, the American people, against aggression.
The Army at that time decided that we were going to be so serious. We were going to help. We were going to fight. And then the war ended in Europe. So we said, okay, we've got John MacArthur still there. We can go to Pacific. And sure enough, one day orders came ordering us to report to Camp Pendleton, Oregon. We said, well, this is it. We're on our way to Pacific. Little did we know that the Forest Service arm of the Agriculture Department was having difficulty in fighting forest fires. Some were started by campers, not putting out that fire properly. Some were caused by lightning, and some were caused by the Japanese incendiary balloons.
This is one of the Japanese paper balloons, identified by the code name Paper. The unit carries up to 4 10-pound incendiaries and a central payload of about 60 pounds of incendiaries or anti-personnel HE bombs to drop on the west coast of the United States and Canada. It is then supposed to destroy itself. These units have been found in areas ranging from Alaska all the way south to the Mexican border.
That was a well-kept secret because the Army did not want the public, nor the Japanese, to know how effective those balloons were. And we were sent to Camp Pendleton as part of Operation Firefly. That was the code word for smoke jumper. And it was a letdown, really, because we thought we were going to fight the enemy. And here we were going to learn how to jump out of a plane and land in trees, which we were taught not to do, and fight a forest fire with picks and shovels.
In fighting forest fires, time is precious. Even the fastest combination of vehicle, horse, and foot travel permitted small fires to gain momentum and become conflagration before they could be reached and controlled. Then in 1940 came the smoke jumper. Now the firefighter has a chance in his race against time to corral the fast-moving fire demon.
Service people. And one man particularly, Frank Derry, who was a Forest Service paratrooper, had designed a special chute for smoke jumpers. He was able to pinpoint his tree that he wanted to land in. And when you hit the tree, you maneuvered and came down the rope. It was called a LDR, a let down rope. But we had our LDRs, 50 feet up. By the way, that was how we lost the only casualty in that experience. He was coming down one of those tall pines, about 100 feet tall. And as he was coming down, he slipped and he fell. And we had over 33 individual fires that we jumped on, and we had over 1,200 individual jumps. And that was the only fatality we had.
One of the most famous units to which a new paratrooper can be assigned is the All-American 82nd Airborne Division. The men who served in it in World War II made this patch a symbol of good soldiering, courage, and determination.
When the war was over, the 555 came back from Pendleton and was transferred from McCall to Fort Bragg. General Gavin was the commanding general of the 82nd Airborne Division, where he came back to Fort Bragg, which was a home of the airborne. He went to Washington and asked the adjutant general, could he bring the 555 back on the main post and include them in his division. That had never been done. No one ever even given it a thought. This was integration. And this was a year before Truman, the letter proclamation integrating service. This was a year before, almost a year before. So he came back to Fort Bragg, deactivated the 555, and he took our black officers and he took white officers and put them together. And white soldiers and black soldiers moved into the same barracks now. And that was historic. They never did that. And there was not one incident of racism. not one. And they were all working together. We had a fine group of men, and they were all focused on the same thing, improving not only to themselves, but to the world, that colored troops were no different than white troops. If you had it, you had it, whether you were black, white, blue, or green. You know? And they were all dedicated to prove that proposition that all men are created equal.
Again, that was First Sergeant Walter Morris talking about how he created the 555. And if you want to look at that clip and the actual footage, you can go out to chaseogden.com. He is on YouTube under Chase O, youtube.com at Chase Ogden Films. Again, if you want to check out that documentary, Jumping into Fire, appreciate somebody put that together because it took me for a while to find. I wanted to have, not me, again, I already said that, but like I thought it was really important to have somebody's voice, not just mine, tell that story. So
yeah,
that's what it was.
Thank you for finding it.
Yeah,
it's very
it's
important.
good.
I think it's a great, I like it.
Super interesting.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah, I love that they ties into Oregon,
Yeah.
It's very, very cool. So yeah, that's what I had.
That was pretty good. This was a good episode.
I know some of it's heavy, but it's important to learn and talk about and understand. So
just amazing. Very good stuff.
And I think we can do some dad jokes here.
Yeah, why not? Let's cut the tension with some dad
Right.
jokes. I like
All
it.
right.
Oh, do you want to do 2 questions?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have, so I actually looked at, there's a ton of different like months, I guess you can say, like observe, like month-long observances. We got, it even came up like dry January, Black History Month. There's tons of it. So is there a month or is there like an observance or anything? It doesn't even have to be serious, like pop culture that you would think we should observe.
Well, first I had a funny answer for this, but then I actually got serious. I wonder if there's something around sign language. Hearing impaired.
What's another word for like sign language? Like
ASL. American Sign Language.
Yes.
Yeah. I just took one little, community course at the local college on how to do
great.
ASL, and it was really fascinating. But what I found out was, because I always thought, wouldn't it be faster just to write things down on paper
than
it would be to try and use sign language? But actually, even in American Sign Language, they're faster to communicate with their hands than they would ever be to write it down.
Yeah.
And I did not know that. So I learned a lot taking that course, and why it's called American Sign Language, the ASL, and just how it developed and why certain things and why we want to use it. Very, very interesting. I loved it.
Yeah. And I don't see that on this list. This is probably not like a full composed list. It's just on Wikipedia, but that's a great answer.
How about you?
I'll take a little lighter note.
Go for it.
I think should be a month just all, I'll say nerdy, but we'll go down the realm of like Back to the Future month, or like like 80s movies month, or things like that, or like comic book month or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get. It's so funny. Tristan and I were talking about this because like
Star Wars month.
Because like graffiti days in Oregon, but eventually all the people who were alive during the graffiti times aren't going to be around. So what's going to be like the new graffiti? You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be those, 70s and 80s thing, or 80s and 90s is now going to be, the things that people are into. So,
well, my 2005 Nissan Sentra may be in graffiti before I know
it. It's considered vintage now.
That's right. That's
20
right.
20 years. Is that crazy?
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
And then, and then what is, I know we're in January here, but before we know it, spring will be here. What are you looking forward to most with springtime?
Springtime, let's see here. Once again, Trust and I had just the big goal of, holy mackerel, trying to get some garden going, getting some vegetables. I have a property where I can gate off completely, but we have deer around here that are apparently trained as like mercenaries who watch my yard with binoculars from up on a hill. So as soon as I grow a single tomato, they come through and eat anything that's relevant. So it's going to be not only trying to get a garden going, but try and protect it. I'm going to be like those crazy old guys out there in a rocking chair with a gun. Yeah, scarecrow or, Right. So anyways, how about you?
Well, warm weather for one. Looking forward to some warm weather. Again, we're probably going to try to do a garden as well too.
Yeah.
So mostly just probably being outside, enjoying sunshine.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
Freezing my tail
Back to
off.
disc golf.
Yes.
More disc golf.
Yeah. Frankly, I think just sunshine.
Right.
It's a little gloomy around here.
I love it.
What do computers eat for a snack, Mark?
It's got to be something with bites. What is it?
Microchips.
Microchips? Dang it.
Why couldn't the bicycle stand up?
He was too tired?
Because it was too tired.
I like that one.
What do you call a baby monkey?
I got me.
A chimp off the old block.
That's pretty good.
Pretty
good.
Yeah.
I like that one.
We won't do too many more of these here. How much did the pirate's new earrings cost him?
A buccaneer?
Perfect.
Yeah.
A buccaneer. All right, this will be the last one here. What do you call a guy with a rubber toe?
A guy with a rubber toe? I can't even get. I can tell with the way you're laughing already. It's a good answer. I'm already excited.
Roberto.
Beautiful.
I can't get any better than that today, so I'm finishing
amazing.
that.
That's good stuff.
When you call a guy with a rubber toe, Roberto. And if there's any Robertos out there and you have a rubber toe, we mean no offense.
Once again, it's the first
no
one
offense
that's
to your
gonna
rubber
write in.
toe.
I cannot. Yeah.
I am offended.
How dare you?
Well, fantastic episode, Mark. Thank you so much for the history on Letitia and York. I love it, man.
Great job finding that clip. That clip was really, I think that's very important to get that other voice
Absolutely.
on there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, if you want to check us out, you can just Google us, tell Alexa, play the Oregon Files podcast. Mark puts it on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. Go to our website, OregonFilesPodcast.com. You can follow us on Instagram. I put it out there as well. There's links on Instagram as well. I don't think we're very hard to find anymore.
No, we're not. I see us come up in searches.
Pretty
we have a couple
easy.
Good interviews coming up.
Yes,
we
got some interviews. Yes, we got interviews. Mark's. Yeah, we interviewed somebody. We're going to have that out here within the week or so, a couple weeks. And then we have another interview lined up. So again, man, we're just rolling into year 4 here, episode 62.
Thank you for
and just
listening.
appreciate everyone listening and the support. So have a great day.
Cheers.